This is the one we were trying to remember yesterday. Tabano, yeah.
And they would eat through the heaviest jeans or anything else, and they make a very painful, burning bite. Of course, the mosquitoes are all on duty too, but that's evil. Now that is the most awful.
It's an awful place. Nicole visited La Chorrera long before I was there, even before John Sullivan was there. That's how out in front of the pack
she was. 59.
You were there in 59. I didn't get there till 71.
They're a wonderful group of nuns and priests there.
Yes, I wonder how they're faring in the middle of the Coke Wars.
But I haven't heard they're killing any Catholic priests.
No, I think that airfield is very important to the Coconeros, and probably they strive to keep decent relations there.
Well, they're all Catholics too.
Oh yes, absolutely. The higher horror of the whiteness is certainly a Catholic trait. Well, let's see here. Let me... I'm a little off balance because I held a weekend at Esalen 2 weeks ago, and they allow the people who participate in the workshops to evaluate people, and I got dinged. And somebody wrote an evaluation and said Terence Mckenna is the William Buckley of the psychedelic left.
Good God.
And he needs to learn to listen. So you'll see me doing or trying to do a lot of listening this weekend. I have a kind of obsessive need to create a certain kind of closure. So excuse me for about 5 minutes and I'll do it. It's just to satisfy an itch of mine. It's the need to try and tie this all together and make some kind of sense of it. I mean, what does a plant that heals wounds have to do with hallucinogens, and what do these things have to do with a global planetary crisis in the ecosystem, and what does that have to do with each of us? Well, to create an overarching metaphor that can connect all this together, I think what we have to do is think in terms of the exhaustion of our own cultural forms. I mean, that's what we're living through, is a global dying created by the exhaustion of our cultural forms and the vitality of the cultural forms that we see in these so-called primitive, I called them pre-literate people. As Nicole pointed out, they have nothing. But what they seem to have that we cannot seem to get a grip on is a kind of dynamic equilibrium with their environment and peace of mind in the felt experience of the moment. These are the two things we don't have. As a society, we cannot seem to make peace with nature. As human beings, as individuals, it's very hard for us to be at peace with ourselves. I mean, I consider my own life the search for peace of mind. Forget enlightenment, forget shunyata, all this stuff. Just a little peace of mind would be a tremendous boon as far as I can see. So I really think that there's a confluence here of themes and possibilities. It has this richly plotted texture that always lets you know that you're in the presence of a higher order of things. It's that the shamans whom we admire, who we idealize, are seen to be at the center of this environment, the warm jungle, the tropics, the warm tropics, that we find it necessary to destroy. So it's a perfect image of us being at war not only with ourselves, but with nature itself. And, you've heard all about how the Amazon and the Congo Basin in eastern Indonesia are all being cleared and lumbered and turned into cattle ranches. This is a tragedy, obviously. We understand and can perceive the dynamics of that. But how to make sense of a situation where, as the World Bank and the IMF attempt to halt this kind of destruction, on the other side of the coin, the United States State Department and the DEA and these agencies propose and are planning to carry out the defoliation of the Waijaga Basin. So there's a schizophrenia here that is not academic. I mean, are we trying to get the patient well, or are we pulling the plugs one by one? We seem to be acting in both dimensions simultaneously. And I think it's because we have not in this culture awakened to the depth of the crisis that surrounds us. There's a lot of kind of self-congratulatory backslapping going around these days over the fact that communists everywhere are in hot water and have to admit that they did it wrong. And this gives a lot of satisfaction to people who feel that that means we did it right. We didn't do it right. They did it wrong and now admit they did it wrong. We do it wrong and have yet to even raise the possibility of turning away from what we are doing. The internal contradictions of Marxism were based on a false definition of what people are. People do not respond to central planning, hortatory propaganda, and stereotyping. Neither do people respond to an ethos of self-denial or a view of human beings that denies the fact that we have certain itches which must be scratched. So, I think that the collapse of Marxism is only the collapse of the outer edge of the societal and civilizing assumptions that we have made. After all, Marxism is nothing more than the millenarian retread of Christian millenarianism. And so is modern science, yet another secular retread of Christian millenarianism. So our culture is in trouble. Not trouble. We are at a terminal crisis, a bifurcation that it can only go one of two ways. Horror beyond your wildest imagination, or breakthrough to dignity, decency, community, and caring beyond your wildest imagination. Now, where do you look for models? Where do you go? The answer is so obvious. You go to nature. Nature has been playing this game for 3 billion years on this planet. We have been playing the game, we, the apostles of Christian scientism, for about 2,000 years. Nature has an economy, an elegance, a style that if we could but emulate it, we could rise out of the rubble that we are making of the planet. It was the geographer Carl Sauer who said, man found the planet a climaxed primeval forest. He, and notice the gender here, he will leave the planet a weedy lot. A weedy lot. Well, now this is a metaphor where you change climaxed rainforest for weeds, but it's also true. By clearing land, we promote the kind of plant evolution that stresses very rapid seed production and annular cycles of growth. In other words, weeds. And this tendency to find perfection